Sleepy English Academy. Story 1. The Unexpected Road Trip. Our story begins with Mark, a 32-year-old graphic designer from London who had built a life that was, by all accounts, predictable and safe. Mark enjoyed the comfort of routines, waking up at the same time each morning, grabbing a quick coffee, and heading to his design studio where he'd spend hours refining logos, adjusting typography, and meeting with clients. This steady pattern suited him. He liked knowing what the day would bring, even if it meant late nights, client revisions, and a schedule filled to the brim. But as comforting as this routine was, something in Mark's life had started to feel off. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but lately, he'd been feeling that his days blurred together. He often found himself wondering if this was really all life had to offer: a steady paycheck, some recognition in his field, and the same cycle week after week. On a rainy Wednesday morning, Mark's life took an unexpected turn. He was supposed to meet a client at a coffee shop across town, as he often did, and had planned his day down to the minute. But as he sat in his car, waiting for the light to change, his phone buzzed with a message from a name he hadn't seen pop up in years. Josh. Josh was an old friend, the kind of friend with whom he'd shared many youthful memories, but had lost touch with over time. The message was short and cryptic. Fancy a road trip? Leaving in an hour. No questions. Just say yes. Mark stared at the screen, bewildered. A road trip? Out of nowhere. Mark's first instinct was to dismiss the idea. He had responsibilities, a full day's worth of work, and deadlines looming. But then, in the silence of his car, he felt something stir, a curiosity, a faint sense of adventure he hadn't felt in years. Without giving himself a chance to think too much, he typed out 2 words in reply. Why not? An hour later, Mark was back home, hastily throwing some clothes, a toothbrush, and a few essentials into a small bag. He didn't know where they were going or for how long, but the thrill of the unknown was strangely energizing. He left a quick message with his assistant to reschedule his meetings and clients, and, in a burst of spontaneity, walked out the door. Just as he stepped out onto the street, he heard the distinct rumble of a van. There was Josh, pulling up in an old, slightly worn-down Volkswagen camper van, complete with a surfboard strapped to the roof and stickers from various cities and countries plastered along the sides. Josh grinned widely as he leaned out of the window and yelled, "Get in, mate. Let's hit the road." As Mark climbed into the van, he felt a strange sense of freedom wash over him. Josh had always been the adventurous one, the guy who was never afraid to throw caution to the wind and follow wherever life led him. Mark, on the other hand, had always been the more cautious, calculated friend. But now, sitting in this beat-up old van with his spontaneous friend, he felt like he was stepping into a different world. The van was packed with camping gear, a small grill, bags of snacks, and, curiously, an old guitar. As they drove away from the city, Mark noticed how everything looked different from the passenger seat of a van heading nowhere in particular. The world outside seemed to expand, and for the first time in years, he felt his mind quiet down, as if the grip of his routine was finally loosening. Their first stop was a small village about an hour outside the city. Josh suggested they grab a bite at a cozy, rustic cafe that he claimed had the best coffee in the region. They ordered 2 cups and settled by the window, watching the rain fall gently outside. They began to talk, initially about simple things, old friends, memories from their younger days, the changes in their lives. But gradually, The conversation deepened. Mark found himself opening up, sharing thoughts he'd never voiced before. His growing dissatisfaction with the monotony of his work, his fear that life was passing him by, and his lingering dreams of adventure that he'd pushed aside over the years. As they drove further, they passed small towns, open fields, and rolling hills. They took detours down winding roads just because they looked interesting, and Josh, true to his nature, convinced Mark to let go and see where each road would lead. At one point, they stumbled upon a farmer's market where they bought fresh fruits, homemade jam, and some locally baked bread. They ate on a picnic blanket near a river, laughing and reminiscing about their wild teenage years. One of their most memorable detours was to a hidden beach that Josh had heard about from a fellow traveler. They arrived just as the sun was setting, the sky painted with hues of orange, pink, and deep purple. The beach was deserted, and the air was filled with the sound of crashing waves and the distant call of seabirds. They made a small fire and, as the night settled in, Josh took out his guitar and began to play softly. Mark listened, mesmerized by the peace of the moment. It was the first time in a long time that he felt truly present, without the nagging worries of work or the weight of his daily obligations. As they sat under the stars, Josh shared something personal. He had recently gone through a painful divorce and had been struggling with loneliness and a sense of aimlessness. This trip was his way of trying to rediscover himself, to find a part of himself that he felt he'd lost along the way. Mark, surprised by Josh's openness, found himself sharing his own struggles, the quiet discontent, the dreams he'd buried, and the desire to break free from the mold he'd created for himself. The trip stretched into a full week, each day a new adventure, each encounter with strangers a story of its own. They met a retired couple who had sold everything to travel in their camper, a young artist who painted stunning landscapes she encountered along her journey, and a chef who cooked them a meal on his outdoor grill, just because he loved sharing his passion with others. Each person they met left a small imprint on Mark, filling him with inspiration, gratitude, and a renewed sense of purpose. As they returned to the city, Mark looked out of the van window at the familiar skyline, feeling profoundly changed. The journey had awakened something within him, a reminder that life wasn't meant to be confined to routines and deadlines. He realized he wanted more experiences, more connections, and more moments that made him feel alive. In the weeks that followed, Mark began to make small changes in his life. He joined a local hiking group, started painting again, and even reconnected with some friends he hadn't seen in years. And while his career was still important to him, he no longer allowed it to consume his every waking moment. He'd learned that sometimes the most significant journeys aren't measured in miles. They're the ones that lead us back to ourselves.
Subscribe for more videos. Your support helps me create more content. Thanks for watching.